of the year. Now, our Ashley Hodge, he is, first of all, you can tell this is very well typed out.
What font is this?
This is not Times New Roman,
This
so
is
I'm
called
upset about
Hodge.
it. So this is called Hodge. So what he did, he went back and looked, and he went back to the last 29 home games. The last 29 home games that the Big 12 teams have played in games decided by 5 points or less. Now, before we get into this, Kansas has obviously been incredibly good, and so they're going to win a lot of times. And they have 5 games this year. You can sit there and look at 5 games this year where they just, down the stretch, were tougher mentally, physically, and better. But Ashley and a lot of people have always wondered as well about their 3 guardian angels, the guys in the striped shirts, when it comes to the Allen Fieldhouse, which is an intimidating place. That's why if you have a great crowd, it helps you. So he did this. This is pretty interesting. Games by 5 points or less at home that you've won. Baylor, you can see, in Iowa State, there's Kansas State. They all have, there's Oklahoma State, nice records. And then the worst of all of that is 15-14 with Oklahoma, and some of it also might be how good you've been in the last couple of years. Look at the third team down. Kansas is actually 28-1 in the last 29 games at home in games decided by 5 points or less. Before you say anything, here are some other blue bloods. Duke, 19-10. Virginia has the best record other than Kansas at 20-9. Then there's Duke in Arizona. There's Kentucky and Villanova. They've won a couple of national titles recently. Of course, we're talking about Villanova. And then North Carolina at 15-14. Those are the ultimate of the blues. Back to the Big 12 list again. Kansas is 28-1. Ashley and many others, Bob Huggins among others, Scott Drew's alluded to it. And again, a little bit is envy. And a little bit of his Kansas, a lot of it is Kansas is just better. But that is really a huge difference among what they've been compared to others who are also have been pretty good.
Yeah, which is why the way that you beat Kansas at home is to blow them out early. Like, that's how you have to do it. Like TCU did earlier this year. That's why you have to do it, because you have to get the crowd completely out of the game, brokenhearted and sad. Because if they are in it for a second, and you saw, look, Baylor was there, leading by 14.5, right?
Yep.
It just took a little bit of a run to start the second half, and that place gets really fired up again. And then because of the crowd, and look, because of Kansas, it is in the officials' heads that Kansas is just better. I don't think it's something that anybody willfully does. I don't think there's any kind of directive or anything like that. It's just become such a force of habit now that Kansas is going to get that call because it's in their heads.
And then also they're really good and they make plays and they expect to win. And then, of course, there might be a little bit of that makes a difference too.
Yeah, I think that they've got a proven track record of being able to win games at the end for whatever reason you want to chalk it up to. Y'all chalk it up to a couple different reasons, primarily just, the fans and things like that. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, and I know how Ashley feels towards, Kansas's treatment. And so, I'm not quite on that same wavelength with him, but I understand exactly where he's coming from because that just seems statistically improbable. I mean, you look at it not even from the Big 12 standpoint, but every single team's got double-digit losses, and Kansas has 1 in that entire stretch. I mean, that just seems like it's explainable to an extent, but then when you even reach out further and you look at others, and even they all have double-digit losses, and for them to have 1, that just seems like it's a little bit more than getting the right bounce. So, yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Paul, you've got to blow them out, but you've got to blow them out to the extent that not only do their fans not matter, but the officiating can't matter either. And so I think it's a little bit of probably everything mentioned. It's the home crowd. It's the pedigree. It's sometimes the Zebras because they get caught up in the drama and whatever, Kansas is supposed to win is programmed into their minds, I suppose. So, yeah, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and do not by any means want to take away, but that is a little bit of a funky stat. Like that right there is a little bit of an odd stat to be that different than everybody else when everybody else is on a similar wavelength. I'd be curious to know, like in Oklahoma footballs in their stretch before, up until the last couple of years when they were really dominant, if there's a similar, like what are they like 12-1 and everybody else is 7-5 in one-score games, or did they just blow teams out?
They usually were pretty much far ahead of everybody, but you're right.
They scored a lot of points. I would just be curious to see similar scenarios, like who would be comparable in a comparable setting that you could say, like, they're 12-1 against top 25 teams, or 12 and what have you, because that just seems like it's a major outlier when everybody else is grouped so closely.
And you'd have to find, for Oklahoma, that's a good point too, in that you'd have to find one-score home games, which don't happen that often. So to get the proper amount, like if it's, what's the scale from basketball to football, right? So
I don't know.
That'd be weird.
I am of the belief, though, win the damn game. I am, but a call here, a little bit of a touch foul here. Mike Bean makes a great point. He's a big KU fan. They also, if you look at their record in the Big 12 and what they do, their record at home obviously speaks for itself and brings in that but they also win games in the conference on the road as well.
Yeah, I don't think,
and so that surely doesn't hurt.
I don't think that stat by any means explains everything.
No.
But I just think that if you look at it just on the surface without having something else to compare it to, like from a similar situation, then it does look very odd to see how much of a disparity there is. But then again, it also goes on to explain why they are the team that year in and year out wins the Big 12 in basketball, is because they win those close games at home. They beat big-time teams at home more often than not. And so, they deserve some credit for it, but that does make you raise your eyebrow just a little bit.
I also